Friends, we are live. It is CFLW, the show for this Monday, November the 10th, 2025. Rusty with you here. Hope you're having a great start to your week. Man, do we have some interesting weather to talk about for this Monday and into Tuesday as temperatures are going to plummet. And in many locations, we're not just going to break record lows, we're going to shatter them. This is some outrageously cold weather for the second week of November. So we'll get into that. As always, CFLW, the show is sponsored by the leading law firm of Central Florida. Your hometown homeowners insurance attorneys. You get storm damage of any kind, wind, hail, hurricane, you get a burst pipe. They'll walk you through that insurance claim process. Check them out by going to leanonmelaw.com for more information. I hope everyone had a fantastic weekend. I hope everyone enjoyed the milder weather that was out there. Saturday was gorgeous, and I kicked the whole family outside and I said, look, you got to get outside and enjoy today. We got to enjoy the last pool day. We got to just be outdoors for today, because I knew the weather was going to get a little bit crummy yesterday, right? Still mild outside, but we had some waves of rain and a few storms. And even in Brevard County, we had some, healthy storms with some good lightning. But on the heels of that comes what you're seeing right now, and temperatures that as we hit 1 o'clock are topping off in the low 60s and even the upper 50s in a couple of areas. And I'm telling you right now, for most locations, we've already hit the daytime high for today. We'll stay in these upper 50s and lower 60s and just see temperatures drop as we roll through the remainder of the afternoon hours. When we look at the winds outside for you guys right now, these are your fresh north winds, which are 15, 20, 25, and even 30 miles an hour. And that is ushering in this unprecedented cold air for Central Florida here for what's going to be November the 11th, and just really bringing some significant cold weather impact to the area. And look, you're heading out today. Yes, it's gorgeous. There's plenty of sunshine out there, but you got to make sure that you dress appropriately for it. Of course, we don't have any wind chills at this point in time. When we factor, the actual wind in, you get far enough north, like in Tallahassee, from time to time, the feels like number will drop into the 40s already. But we are going to have feels like temperatures area wide tomorrow in the 20s, and maybe even some upper teens, and even our southern areas of feels like temperature or that wind chill value right around 30 degrees. When you look at the dew points, the air is already drying out. Dew points right now are falling into the 30s and 40s, but the air north of us is even colder and drier than that, obviously. Dew points right now that are in the teens and the 20s. So buckle up, my friends. It is going to be a wild cold weather ride for us here, and it's going to take some time for those temperatures to moderate. Let's get into the chat. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're doing well. Hey, Nancy, how are you? It's 68 degrees right now in Wedgefield. Nancy, check that temperature again. It might have already fallen since you last reported that. 44% humidity, the breezy winds. Made some homemade chili for lunch tomorrow. Okay, how about you? Not yet. The wife made some beef stew over the weekend. She's like, look, I know it's still 80 degrees, but we'll kind of jump the gun a little bit. But yes, I'm a big soup, stew fan, something like that. I will probably be delving into the hot lunch for tomorrow as well. Hey, Chessie, how are you doing? Spring Hill, 57 degrees with the sunshine. The dew points are in the 40s, and that north wind coming in as well. Hey, Marilyn, how are you as well? Good to see you. Appreciate everyone tuning in. Again, if you guys are here, thanks for taking a quick second, hitting that like button for me and subscribing to the channel if you guys haven't as of yet as well. Okay, now I want to look. This whole show is going to be about preparing you guys for the temperatures tomorrow, which are going to be outrageously cold. Let me take one quick second here and just drop my name off. You guys know who I am. That's enough of that. Let's look at our live pictures first of all. We'll start off in Winter Garden. Again, it's a veil of thin high clouds, wispy high clouds, cirrus clouds, mainly made out of ice crystals, which is why they're kind of wispy. Again, the air is drying out, and we'll have a little bit of this cloud coverage coming in, the remainder of the day. Look, A little bit of a broken deck of upper level clouds, not out of the question, but there's going to be a lot of sunshine out there today and clear skies overnight. This is what it looks like right now from Winter Park. You can kind of see the iridescence there on the top right hand side of your screen. The breeze, of course, is a big story. Look, that breeze is pulling in this colder air, and it's just going to drop quickly the remainder of this afternoon. If you have any plans to be outdoors later today, I mean, it is layer weather out there because of the wind. Even though there's not a wind chill, I promise you there's a chill in the air and chill on your back when you walk outside. So make sure you got a couple of layers just in case. You can always shed the outer layer if you have to here. But again, you know, we're typically talking about one of these fronts a year, and most of the time this is a January, February front. It's not going to be here in early November. Live look outside to Conway, southeast side of downtown Orlando. Again, same situation, that nice kind of that, you know, very light blue sky that we see sometimes this time of the year. From the Conway cam, you can see that, again, thin high veil of clouds working its way in and passing by from north to south the remainder of the day. Beautiful, cool weather in the attractions area in Lake Buena Vista. Look, it's going to be great to head to the attractions, but again, if you're heading out later tonight, maybe you like to hit the fireworks displays, you got to bundle up, man. Temperatures are going to be dropping very quickly tonight and through the overnight hours, but sunshine's out there. And again, you guys can see your live temperatures across most of Central Florida at the bottom of your screen, the remainder of the show. All right, so again, you know, just to get back here, I've made a lot of graphics for today to talk about the temperatures, but these are your current air temperatures, and I'm just going to pause this at 1 o'clock, right? So already in the panhandle, temperatures at a couple of spots have actually fallen back into the upper 40s. Now, one reason why temperatures are warmer south is obviously the brunt of the front is pulling through, but there's just a little bit of cloud coverage across that area. The front itself right now is analyzed kind of from Port St. Lucie back down to Naples. There's still a bit of a south wind down there, so it's interesting. Miami is sitting at 81. Homestead 82, and then in the panhandle you've got some upper 40s. So there's a stark difference here, but once this front blasts through, winds, you know, continue to freshen out of the north, the air continues to get drier. There's nothing stopping these temperatures from just falling. And, you know, right now, most of our wind is a bit of a northwest variety. They'll turn almost a little bit more due north the remainder of the afternoon and especially into the evening in the overnight hours. Hey, Fiona, how you doing? 61 Orlando, forecast 35 tonight. Well, who's telling you that, Fiona? I haven't given you my forecast yet. I mean, I don't trust any of these people. I mean, you know, again, Fiona, you might be in timeout for 5 minutes. You know, you're talking about a forecast that's not mine. I don't know how I feel about that. I love you tremendously, but I will say that you're probably about on what I'm going to be talking about, but, you know. Freeze warning, yeah. So we're going to talk about all of that stuff. I'm going to talk about the freeze warning. We're going to talk about the areas that need to cover plants and all of that stuff. I got you covered. And then we're going to look at your morning lows tomorrow and how that compares to records for November the 11th, which is going to be outrageously shattering some of these records in these areas. It absolutely is going to be amazing out there. So let's break down what's going to be happening here overnight. So like I said, made a lot of graphics. Let's get started with that. The first thing you're looking at is the overall advisories and warnings, okay? Now, there is a freeze warning that is going to go into effect for Marion, Citrus, and the inland sides of Hernando counties. What that means is these areas will see actual air temperatures at or below 32 degrees. Some areas could even dip into the upper 20s overnight, and that does include Levy County as well. So, you know, from places like Crystal River and Inverness and Brooksville and Ocala and Silver Springs and Bellevue up into Alachua County as well. So Gainesville, your actual air temperatures are likely to go below 32 degrees. Okay, so that's why you have a freeze warning. Everywhere else in Central Florida and even south of Lake Okeechobee has what's called a cold weather advisory. Now, this is a bit of a new advisory. This just simply talks about how cold it's likely to be, both air temperature wise and wind chill values. With the wind staying up overnight, the wind chill values through all of these areas, so Daytona Beach and Deltona and Sanford and Titusville and Orlando and Tampa and Clearwater and St. Pete and Bradenton and Sarasota and Melbourne and Palm Bay and Leesburg and Lakeland and everywhere in the light blue should have wind chill values tomorrow morning between about 25 and 30 degrees. But the air temperature is likely to stay above freezing. Now, the wind chill values in the areas that are going to see the actual freezing temperatures, your wind chill values could be right around 20 degrees, right? So there's all kinds of cold air coming in, and the wind is a big story. Now, because the wind is going to be staying up overnight, what you do not see are frost advisories or frost warnings, because the air where we're going to have temperatures above freezing isn't going to be settled enough to allow the frost to form. However, with the areas below freezing, we could still see some frost. So let me break this down for you guys, right? Try to make this in one nice graphic. We can go over this. So there's the freeze warning, Marion, Citrus, Inland, Hernando counties. Temperatures as low as 27 in some areas, with wind chills as low as 20, right? Everywhere else in Central Florida and even into South Florida, that cold weather advisory. Again, mainly for the wind chill being 25 to 30, actual air temperature should be above freezing. Now, the winds overnight are going to be 15 to 25. They may settle to 10 to 20 right around daybreak tomorrow, but it's still going to be quite windy outside even into the AM hours of Tuesday. Again, this plays a huge role in who could see frost conditions, right? Because the winds are going to stay strong overnight, it's not going to allow frost to form in areas above freezing. We call that radiation frost. Remember, most of the time we talk about frost in Central Florida, it's because the air is very still, right? And the winds are very light. And then you can get that frost to develop on elevated surfaces through the radiation process, it develops on those elevated areas. But with the winds whipping around, you're not going to have that settled air to allow the frost to develop on those locations when it's above freezing. Look, we can get frost, 36, 37 degrees if the air is still enough and that radiation frost is very efficient. But that's not going to happen overnight. However, frost may still form in areas below freezing. We call that advection frost. Basically, the wind is carrying in a cold enough air and it's hitting surfaces that are already below freezing, right? Like your mailboxes and the roofs of your car and your homes and some of the plant surfaces, and it could develop frost through the advection process, right? So if you live in the areas under the freeze warning, make sure you protect your plants, okay? Because there could be some frost and freeze issues with some of the tender vegetation in our northwest areas, right? Now, for everyone else, I'm going to say it's up to you, right? I'm not ever going to tell you don't protect the vegetation, don't protect your tender, plants, vegetables, anything like that. You choose however you want to do it. I'm not expecting a lot of frost to develop in most of Central Florida outside of the freeze warning areas, but it's totally up to you. But just please be aware that the winds are going to be whipping overnight, still 15 to 25, and maybe from time to time a higher gust. So you want to make sure that whatever blanket or sheet that you put over your tender vegetation outside, that it's tied down in some way or weighted down in some way, because otherwise it's just gonna flop over. I mean, if you just throw a sheet over some of the palms or, plants, whatever you got outside in the vegetable garden, it's just going to whip right back over in 10 minutes. So just make sure you find a way to tie it down if you want to. And of course, remember the pets. Make sure you bring all the pets indoors. They don't want to deal with these kind of temperatures. So make sure that they are appropriately, warm. I'm hoping that the cold weather shelters for those who, are homeless are available. They should be across Central Florida. I know it's the second week of November, but this is the heart of winter kind of cold front that we are going to be seeing in our area overnight. Hey, Blue Goose, how are you? Good to see you. 58 degrees with a 45% humidity there in St. Augustine. Great to see everyone. I appreciate you tuning in. Okay, so this is the overall scenario for tomorrow morning. If you got any questions about the forecast as far as this information, feel free to drop it in the comment section below at any time. But again, just be aware that even though it's going to be frightfully cold in most areas, we're not likely to see a lot of frost because of the elevated winds overnight, except in our sub-freezing areas where we could still get advection frost there, and that could cause some problems with citrus plants and tender vegetation and anything that is just not cold weather tolerant plant-wise for us here. It's now time to talk about morning lows. And I teased this Friday, right? And the models only got colder the last few days. And I went and I started making morning low graphics for you guys. And I was only going to do a few. And then I started researching all of the different record lows across the area. And I realized that most areas are going to break record lows tomorrow, but not only break record lows, they're going to shatter record lows. And I had to not only look at this information, not once, I didn't double check it. I like triple and quadruple checked it to make sure that, is this really the actual, coldest that we've ever seen on November 11th in these areas? So here we go. This is what it looks like. And we're just going to do 3 a page, but I got plenty of pages for you. We'll start off in Orlando. This column is going to show you the record lows for November 11th. This column is going to show you my forecast lows. In any city that has a star next to it, as far as my forecast low, that's going to break a record. Okay, so the record low in Orlando for November 11th is 39 degrees. And remember, that's actually at the airport in the south side of the city. So there have been so many times recently that most of Orlando has froze, but officially at the airport at MCO, it hasn't froze because it's one of the warmer areas down south. Well, even down there, I've got it getting down to 36 degrees. The record low is 39, set back in 1932. We're going to shatter that record low by 3 degrees. And there will be other outlying areas, especially in northern and northwest Orange County, that will get to 33 and 34 degrees. Okay? Tampa, the record low tomorrow is 40 degrees. That was set back in 1913. Okay? A 112-year-old record low is going to be obliterated in Tampa tomorrow, as my forecast is down to 37 degrees. Daytona Beach and some of the East Coast will stay just above the record lows. Not everywhere, but St. Augustine South, Palm Coast, Daytona and Ormond, and some of Brevard County, depends on where you are, the Cape, likely to stay above their record low. So 35 is the record low in Daytona. My forecast is 37. Now, let me be clear. The record low on the 10th of November and then on the 12th of November in Daytona was 40 and 41 degrees respectively. It just happened to be that on the 11th, they plunged down to 35 degrees one year. I don't know if I wrote it down. They did, 1956. So we had this little quick drop in 1956 down to 35. Otherwise, if it was today or on Wednesday, we would blow through the record low in Daytona Beach as well, because I've got 37 for their temperature for tomorrow. For Brooksville, this is the graphic that is shocking, okay? Brooksville's record low tomorrow is 37 degrees, set back in 1977. I've got them down to 31. They're going to plow through their record low by about 6 degrees. And again, places like Brooksville and Hernando County are likely to be below freezing, which means we're likely to see some frost develop in some of these areas. Here's the crazy one. The record low in Lakeland is 44 degrees. That was set back in 1996, the last time they had that 44 degree number on November the 11th. I've got them down to 35 tomorrow morning. 9 degree record low. This is not Michigan, you know what I mean? Where a cold, Arctic air unlocks and we just see this tremendous plunge. It's very rare, especially in November, that you can just get these temperatures to be so much below average, so much below record lows. I mean, again, 44 is the record low in Lakeland. I've got 35 tomorrow morning, all right? St. Pete, about the same situation. 44 is their record low. I've got 39. Yes, most of Pinellas County, even close to the coast, is likely to fall into the upper 30s tomorrow morning. Maybe right along the beaches, we're in the lower 40s, but upper 30s is the more likely number in most of Pinellas County. And same situation for the Bradenton, Sarasota areas as well. Right? We've got iguana falling off of trees kind of situation here. A couple of others for you here. Let's keep rolling. Ocala, record low is 31. I've got 30 to break the record low there as well. Ocala's record low was set, actually, I couldn't find that one. That was the only one I couldn't find. Sanford, The record low is 38. I've got 35. Sanford, your record low was set back in 1962. A lot of interior and eastern central Florida, the record lows for November the 11th, 1962. Sanford, again, 38. Or there was a 39. I think actually Sanford's record low is, oh no. I wrote down 38 in 1962 for Sanford. So it's either 38 or 39. Apologies for that. My record low is 35. Melbourne, your record low is 42. Again, back in 1962. I've got you down to 40. So I do expect there to be some records to be broken even in Brevard County overnight, including the Melbourne area getting down to 40 degrees. So again, Ocala, Sanford, Melbourne, all likely to break their record lows as well. Let me go back here real quick. Couple of other areas I want to point out if I haven't yet. Leesburg, you'll break your record low of 38 degrees back in 1962. And I think that was it. I think it was the only one I didn't have a chance to include was Leesburg, 38 back in 1962. Okay, so what does that look like compared to normal, right? So this is your temperature anomaly for morning lows tomorrow morning. 23-ish is about the lowest anomaly, but you've got 27, 28, even 30-degree temperature anomalies here, meaning below average, right? Normally our morning lows, you know, probably somewhere in that lower 60s range, and just depending on where you are, you know, some upper 50s out there for normal morning lows. But it's crazy to see how much colder than average we are going to be for tomorrow morning. So most areas, again, like Orlando, about 24 degrees below average. Again, portions of Brevard County get close to 30. Same situation for portions of Pinellas County, Flagler County, Volusia County, 27, 28 degrees below average. Citrus County, 25, 26. You get the idea. But again, here's why we're not going to see a lot of frost. These are your wind gusts tomorrow morning. Now, sustained winds, again, are likely to be 10 to 20, maybe 15 to 25 at most, but your wind gusts are still going to be in the 20 plus range in most locations, right? So let's say 10 to 20 at daybreak with some higher gusts, especially along the East Coast, right? Towards Brevard County, where we might have some 30-mile-an-hour winds. Again, that might mix up the air just a little bit more, keep temperatures a little bit milder there, but it's still gonna be a shock to the system how cold this is gonna be across the area here. So again, upper teens to low to mid 20s for wind gusts as we get into tomorrow morning. And then the feels like numbers, right? This is your wind chill. Your feels like numbers for tomorrow morning look like this. Again, most areas on the European model, 25 to 30 degrees, I-4 in north and west. Might be a little bit milder along the Brevard County and portions of the southern Volusia County coast, but everyone else, you know, the wind chill values are in, you know, particularly even the lower 20s. I think these numbers might be a little bit too warm some of the overnight hours. Look, obviously, if you have kids, you got to make sure that they're dressed in multiple layers tomorrow morning when they head out to school. You know, I know I've already told my wife, I said, look, you know, pull out whatever cold gear we got. You know, we're going to be layering them up as we get them out to school tomorrow morning. Same situation, you know, hats, gloves, scarves. If they have to sit outside for any length of time, hats, gloves, and scarves. The Weather Service offices, when those, we're talking about the freeze warnings and even the cold weather advisors, you know, they do mention hypothermia. You can, I mean, you know, you have to be exposed to it for a while in these kinds of temperatures and wind chills, but hypothermia, anywhere, you know, any temperature below freezing, and that's what we've got tomorrow morning. So just don't, you know, let them walk out the door without being fully protected, right? You know, get them the hats. They want to wear the earmuffs. They want to wear the gloves, the scarves, especially if they set out for the bus. It's a great idea. And it's still going to be chilly tomorrow afternoon as well. I think I went through, the funny thing about this is that I went through all these graphics that I made, and I've got these certain slots in my show. I'm like, man, I'm out of graphic slots. So I have one 3-day forecast to show you guys here in just a second, and we'll look at that. But does anyone have any questions about what I just went through? I mean, it's crazy, these lows that we're going to see tomorrow morning, right? Well, you know, northwest areas, inland, you know, Blue Goose, talking about Ocala, right? And sheltered locations, that will be dependent as far as some of that frost to develop there. But again, a swift kick in the pants, if you will, with these temperatures for tomorrow morning and what I'm expecting. And again, even right now, most areas have topped off to their daytime highs. Maybe we climb another degree or two through 2 o'clock, but that's about it, right? That's about it for tomorrow morning. And you already look at, where some of the temperatures here, you get into North Georgia and they are already dropping. They're already back down to freezing here. Atlanta is already beginning to fall. So you get the idea of what's kind of on the way for us here. It's somewhat of a moisture-starved system. There's going to be some snow, but this is more about the Arctic air that's associated with it. And again, these are your actual air temperatures right now. If we bring on the wind chill values, you're already back into the teens here. And again, there is a maximum to how cold this air is going to get because there's no snow cover, right? So we're not, continuing to just slide off of already frozen ground here. But again, we're going to be shocking the system through a lot of the areas east of the Mississippi here over the next day or two. All right, so let me show you guys. Again, only had enough slots to make one 3-day for you, but we're really focused on tomorrow. Now, this is what I've got in Orlando. So I've got 36 as a record low tomorrow morning. We'll have sunshine all day long. We'll have the north winds, but we're only going to get up to 57 degrees. Our daytime high will stay below our normal morning low. Okay, so it is, layer weather all day. Now the winds will lighten up throughout the day. The sunshine will help things a little bit, but 57 is still a pretty darn cold morning, afternoon high. Now, again, let me be clear too. Tomorrow is Veterans Day, and I want to wish a happy Veterans Day to all the veterans out there. If anyone who is currently watching right now is a veteran, please let us know in the comments section below. We would like to honor you. And if you're watching during the recorded version of this, which of course this becomes a recorded video on the CFLW live tab when I'm done, and you're a veteran, let us know as well. We'd like to honor you. If you are going to any Veterans Day services for tomorrow, please make sure that you are bundled up. I don't know, I haven't had a chance to check, depending on what we're talking about parade-wise or just, memorial service-wise, or, just gratitude of service-wise with outdoor activities, if they are moving them into the afternoon from the morning. I don't know, but if you were planning to be outdoors tomorrow morning for something associated with Veterans Day, you might just want to double check that they're not either moving it indoors or pushing it back a little bit to get it a little bit warmer. Because if we're talking about, morning low of 36 in Orlando, it's going to be some time to get even out of the 40s. Probably just before lunchtime, we're finally out of the 40s and then punching up to 57 for the daytime high. But, important day, but obviously you got to be very prepared for the cold. And for some of the veterans out there who are older and elderly, not a good situation to have them outdoors in these kind of temperatures for very long. Does this, Blue Goose wants to know, does this set up later for cold plunges this winter? It's a great question. I don't know if I have a fantastic answer for you, Blue Goose. I mean, some meteorologists that I follow and those who are more climate, oriented than I am, do talk about how some of the overall long wave setup may allow more true Arctic plunges to enter the United States. So we'll see. I mean, obviously this is unprecedented, so we're off to that kind of a start, but it's a good question that I'll look into more as we roll through the rest of the fall. But so I'll put a pin in that one, but it's a great question, Blue Goose. Some of the hinting is that it's a possibility, yes, that we could, maybe not see these kinds of records, but just where we're going to have a winter where we're going to be a little bit colder than average and have stronger cold fronts moving through. Certainly looks like that's a possibility. All right. So that's what it looks like for tomorrow. Still 41 in Orlando Wednesday morning. So a lot of 30s north and west of I-4 for Wednesday. Not expecting there to be freezing numbers on Wednesday morning. I'll keep an eye on that for you guys and post if that is going to happen in any locations, but still very cold. Now, look, could Ocala, could Gainesville slip to 32 Wednesday morning? It's not out of the question. It's certainly a possibility, but probably a very short duration freeze if it were to occur for Wednesday. The coldest brunt of the air is tomorrow morning. We're back up to 68 on Wednesday, feeling a little bit better about things. Cold start still on Thursday. Look, it's still mid 40s outside in Orlando, right around 40 in northwest areas, probably around 50 in Brevard County and areas south and east, but a milder afternoon ahead, so 73. So we go from 57 tomorrow afternoon back up to 73 degrees for you guys. And again, I want to make sure that everyone is very clear of the overall situation for tomorrow. The freeze warning is in effect for Marion, Citrus, and inland Hernando counties. Actual air temperatures are likely to fall as cold as 27, so your freeze duration in some areas could be a few hours. 2 to 3 in some areas, maybe 3 to 4 in some others. Wind chill values, frightfully cold, as low as 20 degrees. All right, so again, kids bundled up. If some reason you're able to actually just drive them to school tomorrow, so they don't have to sit out there and wait for the bus, not a bad idea. Again, this is a front that sometimes we don't see at any point in time during the winter months here in Central Florida, and we're getting it the second week of November, which is why we're shattering these record lows. Cold weather advisory for everyone else. Again, Orlando, Daytona Beach, Melbourne, Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater, Bradenton, Sarasota, Lakeland, all areas, Claremont, that I expect to not drop below freezing air temperature wise, but with the strong north winds overnight, you are going to fall below freezing with the wind chill values. It will feel like 25 to 30 degrees tomorrow morning because those winds will stay up at 15 to 25. Again, they could settle just a little bit overnight, but not much. So again, that's not going to allow frost to form in areas above freezing. That's what we call radiation frost. We get that typically most here in Florida because the air is calm, it's still, it's dry, and then you get the frost to form in the elevated surfaces. Well, that's not going to happen overnight. We're going to have the strong winds. However, in the areas below freezing air temperature wise, we can still get frost, what's called advection frost. Literally, the wind is coming in with enough moisture and there's already sub-freezing surfaces, right? Like your plant leaves or your roofs or your mailboxes, and that will just basically advect in some of the frost in these areas. So you do want to protect the plants in areas that are going to go below freezing. You are absolutely welcome to protect plants in other areas, but I'm not expecting a lot of frost anywhere outside of our freeze warning zones. If you are going to protect the plants and you're going to throw a blanket over them and some sheets, you want to make sure you weight them down or tie them down in some way, because with these strong winds, they're just going to fold over these blankets and sheets pretty quickly out there, and all of your effort has been for naught. And just please remember the pets as well. Make sure that you bring them indoors through all of Central Florida. It is going to be a very cold night indeed. All right. Anyone have any questions about the forecast that I just laid out? Feel free to drop it in the comments section below right now. Again, no chance for any rain. This is all about the colder air that's in place right now. Go back over to this graphic. And again, just letting this loop over the last couple of hours here. Just curious to see if any spot has actually started to fall temperature wise again here. So I'm just going to drop this down to like a 2-hour loop and bring back on these temperatures. Let's see. Crystal River holding steady at 57, Inverness 59. Yeah, Cross City has fallen. They hit 60 and they're back down to 59. So you get the idea, it's coming. Most areas have hit their daytime highs so far. Okay. Well, my friends, please get prepared for this weather overnight. Please take it seriously. Here's something crazy. The Weather Service in their advisories, I can't believe that they had to mention this, but they mentioned don't bring a grill indoors for heat. Is that where we've come as a society, that they have to mention don't bring in your grill and turn it on for heat? But if you do use space heaters, please be very cautious of that, right? That's always a situation, especially the first time. Space heaters need space around them. I'm sure the heaters will be kicked on for the first time in many homes. So just be aware of that. But yes, let's not use a grill to try and heat things up for us here. All right. Cold, freezing, shattering record lows tomorrow morning. That is the story. So there you go. Friends, I appreciate you tuning in. Please remember that CFLW is sponsored by the Lean Law Firm of Central Florida, your hometown homeowners insurance attorneys. They offer free consultation and policy reviews. You get storm damage of any kind. Hey, you get a burst pipe out of any of this cold weather. Even if you've been in an auto accident, they'll walk you through that insurance claim process, offering free consultation and policy reviews. Check them out. It's leanomnilaw.com for more information. I appreciate you guys finding enough on this channel to spend part of your Monday with me. I appreciate you guys taking a minute and dropping a comment below. So for all of those who did, thank you so much for that. Again, that helps out the channel. I love the interaction. That's why I do this. If nothing else, thank you for liking this live stream. Thank you for subscribing to the channel as well. And if you're watching this in a recorded version, again, that's fine too. You get plenty of information, that is somewhat evergreen and will last for several days. Again, this Monday show kind of covers the week ahead. We really had to focus on tomorrow morning because of the cold, but we talk about the week, and then Friday's show is Friday and the weekend. So even if you're watching the recorded version, you have a question about the forecast, feel free to drop it in the comments section below as well. All right, gang, get prepared for that cold weather. It is not going to be a joke tomorrow. We'll slowly moderate throughout the rest of the week. I didn't talk about the tropics because right now things are looking pretty good in that regard. When I see you Friday, we'll talk much more about these temperatures and any chance for some rain. Again, appreciate you guys hitting that like button and subscribing on the way out. Have a great rest of your Monday. It's getting colder from here, and I'll see you guys back on Friday for the newest edition of CFLW, the show. Until then, bundle up, stay warm, take care. I'll see you then.